think, on a question and answer session where people are able to ask questions, and the top table of people involved in negotiating the document answering as many of them as possible. We started just by outlining the broad thrust of the document. Myself, Mary White and Dan Boyle taking 3 sections each and just giving an outline. For me, what I'm saying, our party is very democratic. It's a very difficult decision our members have to make. They have to take into account all the factors. This is not an easy time in politics. Whoever is going to be in government has a very difficult decision to make. And our members have to assess that. It's not an easy or popular time, but it is a time when you can have real effect, when you can effect real change. This country changes in this time. And I think for this country, going slightly greener is actually, more than slightly, going green makes sense. It's the best way we can get jobs. It's where most of the new jobs are going to be available, I think, internationally. People are looking for green products. We can sell them to them. I think also it's interesting, our political party has been very much maybe obsessed almost for the last 30 years about how politics works, the means of politics as well as the ends. And I think this paper has a huge change in some of the means of politics, some of the standards that we need to set in terms of not having unvouched expenses, not having donations which might be seen to influence a party inappropriately in a commercial interest. Having a wider electoral franchise and a different, more modern electoral franchise. So there's significant changes, I believe, throughout this document in the means of it. But what we also try to do, I suppose, is just reflect in this time of change and difficulty, try and change in government so that actually it is responding to people's needs. I mean, there's small sections there, but they're hugely significant. The section about protecting people's family home. The sense people have out there, well, there's NAMA for the big banks, but where's my NAMA? And I suppose what we're trying to do there is to kind of start to steer government to those maybe who are in difficulty, in debt, particularly in their home, and say, okay, let's work with the banks, let's set a system where they can use a range of different measures to help those families out. And that's, I suppose, an example of what we're trying to do, is just reflect the reality, change circumstances in government, in the country, and steer the government in a flexible way to try and respond to it. There's a lot in it. It's not easy to read. It's fairly tight text, but it was all negotiated, I believe, in a very fair and proper manner with our colleagues in government, with the interests of the Irish people, the interest of trying to provide solid, stable and strong government.
Minister, do you think that the NAMA vote would be the more difficult vote to get through today rather than the government vote?
Listen, yeah, it will be, and NAMA is rightly, people are concerned. I can fully understand it, because it's a big decision, because it's not, you wouldn't want to be doing this kind of rescuing banks is not something that you do by choice. It's because you do because you have to do it. Because in the absence of doing that, our banks don't lend, we don't get jobs.
But 2/3, no, that would make it easier.
There are different rules in terms of, in our voting system here, we'll vote first on the programme for government. That requires a 2/3 majority for us to be able to. Yes. In NAMA, would require 2/3 majority against NAMA proceeding. That's the technical rules our party was back in.
That would be easier to get through, obviously, than if
well, we'll see, yeah. And we'll have a debate on that. We've had 5 debates on NAMA in our party, and I'd say actually that's a good thing. I think actually by going out debating, having to answer questions, having to tease out, you actually start to get a better idea of how it should work. Like, there's other changes in this, as well as that one I was talking about the banking side. There are real changes around corporate governance, putting the Common Code of Corporate Governance into legal effect. And that came from us members in our party coming and saying, how are we going to change the rules so this doesn't happen again, the failures that existed in some of the boardrooms. So I think our process, while it's complicated, while it's not easy, is actually one that often leads to positive outcomes.
Can you give us a sense of the debate Q&A session that's been going on so far? What has gone down well with delegates and what has been opposed? What are the things that have not gone down as well and what people think has happened?
There are a lot, I think, of measures here that the Green Party members welcome. In measures like animal rights measures, measures like the emphasis on public transport spending, measures like new planning legislation and so on. I was saying inside though, I said, you know, we have to be honest, this is also a difficult time. It's going to be difficult choices we face in terms of there will be budget cutbacks. We don't do the budget in this document, but we have to be honest and truthful with the Irish people that we can do certain things, we can change direction in a lot of areas where there isn't a financial requirement, but our flexibility, our ability to move is constrained by the budget circumstances. I think though, probably more than anything else, there was a sense inside that we were right to say that even in these difficult circumstances, even when budgets are constrained, to actually give a clear signal that in education we try and hold the line, we try and make sure that we protect resources for education because it is the right long-term investment. I suppose that is one of the ones that I think probably got the biggest or most welcome response. But
can I ask you, just for clarification, the political fund, as far as I can see, donations from private bodies, including businesses and corporations, will be made to a political fund which will be distributed to political parties in accordance with their electoral performance in the previous Dáil election. Could this create a situation where Michael O'Leary's money is going from Ryanair is going to fund Joe Higgins?
Yes, it would mean that any corporation, if the line is, which it often is, and which is a valid one, that we as a corporation want to support the political process. We have a means now by which a corporation can support the political process, all the democratically elected political process.
In relation to criticism, where's the main criticism come from this morning in the meeting?
The criticism is the criticism reflects, I suppose, the concerns that everyone would have. You know, how can we be sure this is going to be built on time? How can we be sure that the money is available? How can we be sure that the public service will deliver? And concerns around NAM and other issues. So they're very valid questions, and we've tried to answer them to the best of our ability.
Would your members be wary of Fianna Fáil?
Of course, listen, members of all political parties are probably wary of all other. No, you're in a political party because you believe yours is the way forward. Yours is the right way forward. I think that one of the things in this difficult time, if you look at when we've been in crisis in the past, the two equivalent crises, it seems to me, in the history of the state was in the 50s and in the 80s. Massive immigration, significant financial failure. In both instances, it took us 10 years to come to a solution. And if you look at what actually characterised the solution, it arrived when there was consensus on the approach we needed to take. It took us 10 years in the 50s to come up with, or to kind of agree to the kind of Bishop-Lemass approach to open up the country. And then it worked. It took us 10 years, I remember in the 80s, to actually realise we had to get the budget right. And when we did, it worked. In both instances, if you look at what actually coincided with that decision, the right decision started to be made. It coincides with the point in time when politicians of all parties started to work together. I think this is a time in Irish politics when we don't start dissing each other, we don't start damning Fianna Fáil, or Fine Gael, or Labour, or Sinn Féin. We say to them, on behalf of Irish people, we need to work together to get out of the difficulties we're in. I actually found in the negotiation of the last 8-9 days, I suppose I've done over 2 years, is that viewpoint in politics, sitting down, teasing out what's the best way of doing things, is actually the best way of making politics.
What about the site valuation tax, Minister? How would that affect the ordinary household?
Well, it is. I mean, you know, people might say, oh, you know, there's some good things in this, and there are, but you know, where's the money coming from? Being honest, what we are saying is, yes, the Tax Commission report was right, that we need to broaden our tax base out. We don't hit labour all the time. We want to hold on to jobs. So, and the biggest areas, I think, one of the areas where we feel, and this document supports it, is in sort of resource taxes, in the likes of carbon, or if you're wasting water, or in terms of property, land-based tax. The Taxation Commission looked at this proposal, and I think they saw a lot of merit in it. They outlined that there is a difficulty in terms of what you have to do is a significant valuation process and registration process before it can be implemented. What we're saying in the document is we're going to start that process, do the necessary background process work, and then implement it. It'll take a couple of years. The Taxation Commission recognised that. But I believe it is the right form of way of particularly funding local government so that we're not just centralising everything.
The land that your house is built on.
It's based on the site, not on the actual property.
And the site would be subject to tax following a valuation process.
Which takes into account the area and a number of other factors.